I've often wondered how it's possible for someone to disappear, just vanish, as though they were never there. No warnings, no signs, no explanations. Ann Gotlib was just 12 years old when she went missing. A girl who had her whole life ahead of her, a life full of potential, cut off in an instant. I think about her last moments, the simple, everyday decision to go to the mall. It was a warm day, June 1st, 1983, when she hopped on her bicycle, headed across the street, and was never seen again. Welcome to True Crime and Shadows, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature and explore the chilling stories that often go untold. If you're fascinated by real-life mysteries, chilling crimes, and the secrets that lurk in the shadows, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Your support helps keep these tales alive, and I can't wait to take you on this journey into the unknown. Thanks for joining me, and let's uncover the truth together. It's unsettling, isn't it? How the most ordinary moments can turn extraordinary in ways we can't imagine. What happened to Ann Gotlib is a story that's gripped an entire community, haunted investigators for decades, and raised questions that still have no answers. As I began researching this case, I found myself piecing together fragments of a life, a bright, young girl who had just started adjusting to life in a new country. She didn't know that on that ordinary summer evening, her world and her family's would change forever. For nearly 40 years, her disappearance has been an open wound. Families, law enforcement, even strangers from all over the country have tried to fill in the gaps of what happened. But the gaps are vast, and the answers have remained elusive. Today, I'm going to walk you through Ann's story, not just what we know, but what we still don't. I'll share the facts, the theories, and the questions that refuse to go away. But most importantly, I'll show you why her story matters even now. So, as you watch this, I want you to imagine, what would you have done if you were Ann's parent? If you were a passerby at the mall that day? If you were the investigator following lead after lead that went nowhere? Let's try to make sense of what happened, or at least honor Ann's memory by keeping her story alive. By the end of this video, you might just have your own theory about what happened, and I want to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every idea, every detail matters. Who knows? It might help someone see this case in a new way. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Back to Ann's life before that fateful day. To understand Ann Gotlib's story, you have to start where her journey began, thousands of miles away in Kiev, in what was then the Soviet Union. Born on May 5, 1971, Ann was a child of contrasts. On one hand, she was like any other child, curious, full of life, and eager to explore the world. But on the other hand, she carried the weight of a family navigating major change. Ann's parents, Anatoly and Lyudmila Gotlib, loved their daughter deeply. Like so many families in the Soviet Union, they dreamed of a better life, one where Ann could grow up free from the limitations and hardships of their homeland. So, in 1980, when Ann was just 9 years old, the Gotlib family made the bold decision to leave everything they knew behind and immigrate to the United States. For Ann, the move to Louisville, Kentucky, was both exciting and daunting. Imagine being 9 years old and stepping into a world completely unfamiliar. New language, new culture, new rules. Yet, Ann embraced this challenge with remarkable resilience. Within months, she had become fluent in English, an impressive feat for someone so young. Her fluency in both English and Russian became a source of pride for her parents, a testament to her adaptability and intelligence. But language was just one hurdle. Adapting to life in a new country meant more than just learning new words, and had to navigate the complexities of fitting in. She was bright, friendly, and eager to make friends. But being the new kid in any situation comes with its own set of challenges. She worked hard in school, and her teachers described her as a promising student, someone who had so much to offer the world. Her family settled in an apartment complex in Louisville, not far from the Bashford Manor Mall, where Ann would spend some of her free time. For a 12-year-old girl, the mall represented a slice of independence, a place to browse, explore, and feel a little more grown-up. It was a safe space, or at least it seemed that way. But I often wonder, what was life really like for Ann during those years? Was she truly happy, or did she feel the weight of being caught between two worlds? Did she ever long for the familiarity of Kiev, or had she fully embraced her new life in America? These are questions we'll never truly know the answers to, but they're important to consider as we unravel her story. Ann's disappearance was devastating not just because of the tragedy itself, but because of the person she was, a bright, vibrant young girl with so much potential. She had her whole life ahead of her, a life that at just 12 years old had already overcome challenges most of us can barely imagine. As you hear her story unfold, I want you to think about this. What challenges do immigrants face when starting over in a new country? The language barrier, the cultural differences, the pressure to fit in. These are all struggles many families face every day. And it's often the children, like Ann, who bear the brunt of these changes. So, take a moment to reflect on her story so far. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think and might have been feeling during those early years in America? What do you think it takes for a child to adjust to a completely new way of life? Because Ann's life, like so many immigrant stories, is one of strength and hope. And it's that strength and hope that makes what happened next so heartbreaking. June 1st, 1983, started like any other day for 12-year-old Ann Gotlib. The sun was out, school was over for the day, and summer break was just around the corner. And it was one of those carefree afternoons, a time when the possibilities of being young and free felt endless. She had no way of knowing it would be her last. That afternoon, Ann decided to visit the Bashford Manor Mall, a place she often went to. It wasn't far from her family's apartment, just across the street. In a neighborhood where people felt safe. This was the kind of errand parents didn't think twice about. Ann got on her red and white bicycle and pedaled off around 5:30 p.m. The Bashford Manor Mall was a hub of activity, a place where families shopped, teenagers hung out, and kids liked and enjoyed exploring. It was the type of place where people knew each other, where you wouldn't expect anything bad to happen. Witnesses later recalled seeing Ann in the mall sometime between 5:30 and 6 p.m. But then nothing. No one saw her leave. No one heard a scream. She was just gone. Later that evening, when Ann didn't come home, her parents began to worry. This wasn't like her. She was a responsible, dependable child who always let her family know where she was. As the hours stretched into the night, that worry turned into fear. Around 9 p.m., her family went out searching, calling her name, checking with neighbors, and retracing her steps. It was during this search that they found her bicycle abandoned outside Bacon's department store at the mall. That red and white bike was more than just a mode of transportation. It was a part of Ann's life, something she loved and used daily. Seeing it there, alone with no sign of her, was the first gut-wrenching clue that something was very wrong. The police were contacted, and an initial search began immediately. Officers combed through the mall, questioned employees and patrons, and searched the surrounding areas. But the more they looked, the more they realized how little they had to go on. There were no witnesses who could pinpoint when or how Ann had left the mall. There were no signs of a struggle, no calls for help, and no security cameras to provide answers. At first glance, the Bacon's department store seemed like an ordinary spot in the mall, but its location became a focal point in the investigation. Was Ann lured outside by someone she knew? Did she step away for just a moment, only to find herself in danger? The possibilities were endless, and the lack of evidence made every theory feel just out of reach. By the next day, word of Ann's disappearance had spread throughout Louisville. Volunteers joined the search, scouring parks, alleys, and any area where a 12-year-old girl might be. Flyers with Ann's picture were handed out and posted on every available surface. Her face, bright eyes, a friendly smile, became impossible to ignore. As I think about that day, I'm struck by how quickly an ordinary moment can turn into something extraordinary in the worst way. 1 minute, Ann was riding her bike, feeling free and independent. The next, her bike was left behind and she was nowhere to be found. Have you ever noticed something unusual while shopping or in public? Maybe a person who seemed out of place, or a situation that didn't feel quite right. What would you do in that moment? Would you speak up, or would you convince yourself it wasn't your place? I want you to think about those questions as we continue this story, because for Ann Gotlib, the answers to those questions might have made all the difference. When a child goes missing, the first 48 hours are crucial. Every minute that passes without a lead feels like another step away from finding answers. Ann Gotlib's disappearance on June 1, 1983, sent shockwaves through Louisville, and the search for her became one of the most extensive investigations the area had ever seen. The Louisville Police Department quickly enlisted the FBI to assist, recognizing the gravity of the case. Together, they began unraveling every thread they could find, determined to piece together what had happened to Ann. One of the first breakthroughs, or what seemed like a breakthrough, came when a police dog tracked and sent to an apartment complex nearby. Specifically, the scent led to the home of an elderly woman, the grandmother of the last person reportedly seen with Ann. For a moment, hope flickered. Could this be the place where Ann was taken? Investigators questioned the woman and her family, combing through every detail of their lives. But after exhaustive searching, they came up empty-handed. There was no evidence connecting them to Ann's disappearance. What seemed like a promising lead quickly turned into a dead end, leaving investigators back at square one. From there, the investigation expanded to include a list of potential suspects. The authorities focused heavily on known sex offenders in the area, many of whom had histories of preying on young children. The logic was straightforward. If someone had taken, and it was likely someone with a record of similar crimes. But even as they interrogated suspect after suspect, nothing concrete emerged. Mall patrons from that day were also questioned. Witnesses were asked to recall anything unusual, an argument, a strange person loitering, or a girl matching Ann's description speaking with someone she didn't know. Despite these efforts, none of the accounts led to the answers they were desperately seeking. And then there were the theories. Some were far-fetched, while others seemed plausible but couldn't be proven. One of the most sensational theories suggested that Ann had been abducted by agents of the Soviet government. The reasoning? Ann's family had left the Soviet Union just 3 years earlier, and some believed her disappearance could have been a calculated move to coerce her parents into returning. While intriguing, this theory quickly fell apart under scrutiny. There was no evidence to support the idea, and her parents firmly denied receiving any threats or contact from Soviet officials. It was a theory born out of Cold War paranoia, but ultimately it was dismissed. Another theory suggested that Ann had run away. Some speculated that as an immigrant adjusting to a new country, she might have felt isolated or overwhelmed. Could the pressures of fitting in and living in a foreign culture have driven her to leave on her own? But those who knew Ann rejected this idea outright. By all accounts, she was a happy, well-adjusted child. She had friends, did well in school, and was close with her family. The thought of her running away seemed completely out of character. Despite the dead ends, the FBI and local law enforcement refused to give up. They poured over thousands of tips and followed countless leads, but each time they hit the same wall. No solid evidence, no witnesses, no answers. And yet, the question still lingers. Were the dismissed theories valid? Could there have been something to the idea of a runaway, or even an international conspiracy? Or was this simply a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think investigators were right to dismiss these theories, or could they have overlooked something important? Share your ideas in the comments, because even decades later, the search for answers continues. The years stretched on, and with each passing day, Ann Gotlib's case grew colder. Leads dried up, witnesses moved on, and the unanswered questions weighed heavily on the Louisville community. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a shocking development in 1990 reignited the case, only to plunge it into deeper uncertainty. In Texas, a man on death row for unrelated crimes made a stunning confession. He claimed to have been responsible for Ann's disappearance. For investigators and Ann's grieving family, this revelation was like a lightning bolt, sudden, intense, and seemingly promising. Could this finally be the breakthrough they had been waiting for? The inmate's story was chilling, but as the details unraveled, inconsistencies began to emerge. He couldn't describe the mall where Ann was last seen, nor could he recall specific details about her life or the day she vanished. His confession lacked the kind of information only the perpetrator would know. The more investigators pressed, the clearer it became. This man was seeking attention, hoping to use Ann's case as leverage for his own gain. His confession was a dead end, a cruel twist that only deepened the family's anguish and left law enforcement back at square one. But then another name resurfaced, a name that had been whispered among investigators since the early days of the case: Gregory Oakley, Jr. Oakley was no stranger to law enforcement. A former veterinarian, he had been convicted of violent crimes, including the rape of a 13-year-old girl, and had a long history of predatory behavior. His record was filled with troubling patterns that bore striking similarities to Ann Gotlib's case. Oakley's connection to Ann wasn't immediately obvious, but the timing and circumstances of her disappearance placed him squarely on the radar. Investigators learned that he had been in the Louisville area at the time of Ann's disappearance. This was no coincidence. Years later, a fellow inmate came forward with a damning claim. According to this inmate, Oakley had confessed to abducting Ann. He allegedly admitted to drugging her with a powerful painkiller called Talwin, a drug known for its sedative effects. Oakley reportedly said that Ann died from an overdose, and he disposed of her body in a way that ensured it would never be found. The confession was horrifying, but it was also frustratingly incomplete. There were no witnesses to corroborate the inmate's story, no physical evidence linking Oakley to the crime, and no way to verify the details. By the time this information came to light, Oakley had died in 2002, released on a medical pardon due to his declining health. For investigators, Oakley was the most credible suspect they had ever encountered. His background, his methods, and his alleged confession all pointed toward him as the perpetrator. But without concrete evidence, the case remained unresolved. Even today, Oakley's name looms over this case like a shadow. Was he truly responsible for Ann's disappearance, or was his confession just another cruel twist in a decades-long mystery? Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Gregory Oakley Jr. was involved in Ann's disappearance? Or do you think there's more to this story than meets the eye? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might just shed new light on an old mystery. As the years rolled on, the pain of Ann Gotlib's disappearance remained an open wound for her family, friends, and the Louisville community. But even in the absence of answers, her case sparked changes that would alter the course of history for countless families facing similar tragedies. When Ann vanished in 1983, the tools and strategies for investigating missing children cases were shockingly inadequate. There were no nationwide databases to share information, no widespread media alerts to immediately raise awareness, and no cohesive strategies for mobilizing communities. Ann's case, and the heartbreak it brought, highlighted these gaps with devastating clarity. In 1984, just 1 year after Ann's disappearance, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, was established. It was a direct response to the growing awareness that missing children's cases needed more attention, coordination, and urgency. The NCMEC revolutionized the way such cases were handled. For the first time, law enforcement agencies across the country had a centralized resource to share information, track trends, and receive training on best practices. Amber Alerts, missing child posters, and media campaigns became standard tools in the fight to bring children home. And Gotlib's name became a rallying cry for change, a reminder of the urgency and importance of immediate action. Her case was referenced in discussions about policy changes, inspiring lawmakers and advocates to push for better systems to protect children. But the impact wasn't just felt at the national level. In Louisville, the community's response to Ann's disappearance demonstrated the power of collective action. Residents banded together to search for and organize events and keep her story in the public eye. The memory of their efforts remains a testament to the strength and resilience of a community united by hope and determination. Ann's case also brought a new level of empathy and awareness to the challenges families face when a child goes missing. It underscored the importance of providing support not just to victims, but to their loved ones, who often endure years of uncertainty and pain. Today, Ann Gotlib's story stands as a poignant reminder of how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Her case may remain unsolved, but her legacy is undeniable. The systems and policies that exist today to protect children owe a great deal to the lessons learned from her disappearance. Now let me ask you, what are your thoughts on how Ann's case changed the way we handle missing children investigations? Do you think there's still room for improvement? Share your ideas in the comments below. Your voice can help continue the conversation and honor the legacy of those who are still searching for answers. Ann Gotlib's case remains a haunting mystery, one that still echoes through the halls of law enforcement agencies and in the hearts of those who remember her. For more than 4 decades, questions have lingered unanswered, their shadows stretching across the timeline of Ann's life. Questions that continue to beg for closure. Why, despite the tireless efforts of investigators, did Ann's case remain unsolved? Was it a matter of missed evidence, missteps in the early investigation, or simply a case of cruel misfortune? We know that many leads went cold, that suspects were never conclusively tied to the crime, and that so many pieces of the puzzle remain hidden in plain sight. Even the confessions, the supposed breakthroughs, ultimately only deepened the confusion. The chilling confession from the Texas death row inmate, the potential involvement of Gregory Oakley Jr., and the mysterious disappearance itself. None of these factors have provided the clarity that was desperately sought after. For every theory, for every new piece of information uncovered, there's a new set of unanswered questions. Was there something about Ann's disappearance that investigators missed in those early days? Was there a piece of crucial evidence overlooked? Could there still be someone out there who knows more than they've ever let on? And then there's the question that has haunted so many. What would have happened if the investigation had taken a different turn? If someone had followed a new lead or reconsidered a theory that now seems so glaringly obvious? These questions remain suspended in time as we try to make sense of a case that has defied all attempts to close it. Now, it's time for you to help piece together the puzzle. What do you think is the biggest missing piece of evidence in Ann's case? Could there be something, perhaps hidden in the shadows of the investigation, that would change everything? And if you had the chance, what would you like to see investigators revisit? Is there a lead, a suspect, or a detail that might have been overlooked that could bring in home at last? Let's open the floor to you. Share your theories in the comments below. Together, we may shed new light on this enduring mystery, or perhaps find a connection that no one has thought of before. The truth might still be out there, waiting to be uncovered. As we reach the end of this journey, we're left with more questions than answers. Ann Gotlib's case, which began with a bright 12-year-old girl full of promise, continues to echo through the years, a mystery that has never been solved. Her disappearance in 1983, the vanishing of a young life, the heartache that rippled through her family, and the void left behind in the Louisville community, has stayed with us for decades. Despite all the theories, confessions, and investigations, the truth remains elusive. Each new lead seemed to offer hope, only to fade into the darkness. The name Gregory Oakley Jr., the puzzling confession from a death row inmate, and the countless other attempts to piece together Ann's fate all point to one undeniable truth. The case is far from closed. But even in the absence of answers, Ann's disappearance sparked changes that shaped the way we approach missing children's cases today. From the creation of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to the ongoing fight for justice and awareness, Ann's story, though tragic, has had an undeniable impact. It has become a part of our collective consciousness, a reminder that no child should ever be forgotten. Ann Gotlib's story is more than just a case. It is a symbol of a nation's commitment to never stop searching, never stop fighting for the truth. Her legacy, though unfinished, has left an indelible mark on the world, and in the hearts of everyone who has followed her story. As we close this chapter, we ask you to reflect on Ann's life and the mystery that has lingered for so long. And in her memory, let us continue to search for the truth, to share her story, and to keep her name alive. If this story has left you thinking, if you felt the weight of the unanswered questions, I urge you to take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others. The more people who know about Ann Gotlib's case, the better the chance we have to uncover the truth. Together, we can raise awareness and keep her story alive. Before we go, we want to hear from you. What other unsolved mysteries would you like us to cover? Which cases have captivated your attention, sparked your curiosity, or left you with a sense of unfinished business? Let us know in the comments below. We might just feature your suggestion in a future video. Thank you for joining us on this journey.